Mama Adwoa was 82 years old. She lived in a small town where everyone knew each other's names and stories. Her house was old but full of memories. The walls held pictures of her youth, her husband, and the children she never had. She had been a widow for many years. Her husband had passed away when she was still young, and she had never remarried. Instead, she devoted her life to helping neighbors, sharing wisdom, and caring for those who came to her door. People respected her, but respect could not cover the loneliness she often felt when the nights grew long and quiet. Her days were simple. She woke early, swept her compound, and prepared light meals for herself. Some mornings she sat outside on a wooden chair, greeting people who passed by. Most young people admired her because she carried herself with strength and dignity. Even though her body was old, her mind was sharp, and her voice carried authority. Still, when the door closed at night, silence was her companion. She often whispered prayers, asking for peace and for her life to still hold meaning. Cato, a 27-year-old handyman, came into her life slowly, like the soft arrival of rain after heat. He worked in the town fixing broken doors, leaking roofs, and anything people needed repaired. He was tall, strong, and cheerful. Everyone liked him because he was polite and hard-working. One afternoon, Mama Adwoa's roof began to leak after a heavy rainstorm. She asked around for help, and someone pointed her to Cato. He came quickly with tools in his bag and a smile on his face. From that day he became a regular visitor. At first, his visits were only for work. He repaired the roof, fixed the squeaky windows, and mended old furniture. But with each visit he stayed a little longer, sitting with Mama Adwoa on her porch, listening to her stories. She told him about the town's history, about the struggles of her youth, and about the lessons she had learned in life. Cato listened with respect, often nodding and asking questions. He had grown up without grandparents, so her wisdom felt like a treasure to him. In return, Cato shared stories of his own struggles. He had lost his parents young and had to fend for himself. His work as a handyman was his way of surviving, though he dreamed of building a bigger life. Mama Adwoa listened with patience, encouraging him with kind words. Their conversations became a rhythm, like the steady beating of a drum. A bond formed, not of romance but of deep respect and care. He saw her not only as an elder but as someone who gave him guidance, and she saw him not only as a helper but as someone who filled her empty days with laughter and warmth. The town noticed their closeness. Some thought it was sweet, others whispered jokes. "Why does the young man spend so much time with the old widow?" they asked. But Cato did not care, and Mama Adwoa did not explain. Their friendship was enough for them. Then one morning, everything changed. The town woke up to shocking news. Rumors spread like fire in dry grass. People whispered from house to house, "Mama Adwoa is pregnant." At first, many laughed, thinking it was a cruel joke. How could an 82-year-old woman carry a child? It sounded impossible, something that could never happen in the real world. Yet, the whispers grew louder and soon everyone believed it. Neighbors rushed to her house, pretending to greet her but truly trying to see if it was true. Some asked bluntly, others stared at her stomach, waiting for proof. Mama Adwoa remained calm, her face showing no shame or fear. She neither confirmed nor denied the rumors. She simply smiled and continued with her chores as if nothing had changed. But her silence only fed the fire of gossip. The focus quickly turned to Cato. People accused him of being the father. Some mocked him, saying he was foolish and shameful. Others were angry, calling him disrespectful for being involved with someone old enough to be his grandmother. Cato stood tall against the words, though inside he felt the weight of every insult. He knew the town would never understand the bond he shared with Mama Adwoa. He tried to protect her from the harsh voices, even when he himself was breaking under the judgment. The town became divided. Some said it was impossible, that science itself would laugh at such news. Others whispered that maybe it was a miracle, a strange gift from the heavens. In the marketplace, in the streets, in the churches, and even in the schools, people discussed it. Everyone wanted to know the truth. Mama Adwoa's calmness surprised them the most. She did not shout, cry, or defend herself. She carried herself with dignity, walking slowly through the streets, greeting people as she always had. But her silence left people restless. Was she hiding something? Or was there truly a miracle growing inside her? Scientists and doctors from the city heard about the story. At first, they laughed too, thinking it was nothing more than village gossip. But when the news refused to die and more people swore it was true, they decided to come. Their arrival brought even more attention to Mama Adwoa's little house. Cameras flashed, questions were asked, and the quiet town turned into a place of worldwide curiosity. Cato stayed by her side through it all. He helped her walk through the crowds, shielded her from rude questions, and fetched her water when she was tired. Many thought he would run away from the shame, but instead, he stood closer than ever before. People began to notice his loyalty, even if they still mocked him. For Mama Adwoa, life had changed overnight. Her quiet days of sweeping her compound and sitting on her porch were gone. Now she was the center of a mystery that no one could explain. Yet, she remained calm, like the roots of an old tree that do not move even when the storm rages. She whispered her prayers at night, not asking for the gossip to stop, but for the strength to face whatever came next. The pregnancy, whether real or imagined, had already changed everything. The town was no longer laughing in secret. They were waiting in suspense. The story of Mama Adwoa, the 82-year-old widow, and Cato, the 27-year-old handyman, had only just begun. The news about Mama Adwoa's pregnancy spread faster than the harmattan wind. In the market, women whispered while pretending to sell vegetables. Men laughed in small groups under the shade of mango trees. Children repeated the rumors they overheard, giggling as they ran through the dusty streets. Some called it a miracle, but most mocked it. An old woman with a baby? Impossible, they shouted. Others lowered their voices and said it was shameful, that Mama Adwoa had disgraced her age and her name. Everywhere she went, eyes followed her. Some stared with open curiosity, others with judgment. Neighbors who once greeted her with respect now pointed fingers. They laughed behind her back, their words sharp like knives. Some even said she had lost her mind and was making up stories. But Mama Adwoa never raised her voice against them. She walked slowly, carrying herself with the same dignity she always had. Her calmness puzzled everyone. It was as if she knew something they did not. Cato became her shield during this storm. Whenever someone insulted her in the street, he stood tall beside her. When men tried to mock her in the market, Cato's voice rang out clear and strong. Respect her. She has done no wrong. Many laughed at him too, calling him foolish. Why defend her? She is old enough to be your grandmother, they taunted. But Cato did not flinch. His loyalty never wavered. He fetched her food, fixed her house, and walked with her so she was never alone. People whispered that he must be the father, but he kept his silence, his face firm against the storm of words. The gossip reached beyond the town. Soon, people in nearby villages heard about the 82-year-old widow carrying a child. Some traveled long distances just to see her with their own eyes. Crowds gathered outside her compound, peeking over her walls, hoping to catch a glimpse. The quiet life she once had was gone. Her house had become a place of endless noise and curiosity. Yet Mama Adwoa remained calm. She swept her compound every morning as usual. She cooked her simple meals. She sat on her wooden chair and greeted visitors politely, as if nothing had changed. Her peace only made people more restless. Doctors from the nearest city came first. They carried stethoscopes, notebooks, and curious eyes. They could not believe the rumors, so they wanted proof. They asked questions, examined her carefully, and took notes. Some shook their heads in disbelief. This is not possible, one doctor whispered. Her age, her body, science does not allow this. But the tests they took confused them even more. They could not explain what they saw. They left, promising to return with more equipment and more experts. Not long after, scientists from faraway universities arrived. They came with cameras, machines, and flashing lights. Journalists followed them, eager to report the strange story to the world. Mama Adwoa's small town, once forgotten, was now filled with strangers from across the globe. Reporters asked endless questions. Mama Adwoa, how do you feel? How did this happen? Who is the father? Cameras pointed at her face, waiting for tears or anger. But she only gave a gentle smile and said little. Life is full of mysteries, she answered softly, and nothing more. Her calmness made the mystery even greater. The people of the town reacted in different ways. Some were proud that their small community was now famous. They boasted to visitors, "This is the place of the miracle woman." Others were embarrassed, saying the attention brought shame. They avoided Mama Adwoa, afraid her story would bring curses. Children sang songs about her in the streets, turning her story into play. Women gossiped louder than ever, their voices sharp with jealousy and suspicion. This cannot be God's work, they said. It must be something dark. Through it all, Cato remained her constant companion. When scientists came with their machines, he stood beside her. When neighbors mocked, he walked her home with his head high. Some accused him directly, asking why he stayed. Are you not ashamed? They asked. But Cato only shook his head. I am not ashamed to stand with someone who showed me kindness, he replied. His words silenced some, but others only laughed harder. Still his loyalty never broke. At night, when the world grew quiet, Mama Adwoa prayed. She prayed not for the gossip to end, but for the strength to endure it. She believed something bigger was happening, something greater than science or rumor. Her heart told her there was a reason behind the strange gift growing inside her. She did not know why, but she trusted that time would reveal the truth. She held on to her faith, letting it guide her through the noise of the world. The doctors returned with more tests, more questions, and more confusion. Each result shocked them further. They debated among themselves, arguing loudly in her courtyard. Some said it was a medical mystery. Others whispered that it was a miracle beyond science. None could agree and none could explain. For every answer they gave, another question appeared. The world watched closely, waiting for the final truth. But Mama Adwoa did not rush them. She waited patiently as if she already knew what was coming. Meanwhile, the town grew restless. The gossip never stopped. Some nights, people gathered outside her home, hoping to hear news. Strangers came to touch her, believing her pregnancy carried blessings. Others feared her, avoiding her path, whispering that she had made a deal with spirits. The noise grew louder every day, yet she remained steady like an old tree rooted in the ground. Cato sometimes struggled with the weight of it all. He felt the stares, the insults, and the endless questions. But whenever he looked at Mama Adwoa's calm face, his strength returned. She reminded him of something greater than shame, greater than fear. Her peace became his peace. Together they stood firm against the storm. In the end, the community had no choice but to wait. The scientists prepared to study further. The gossipers sharpened their tongues for more stories. And the world's eyes stayed fixed on the old widow and the young handyman. Mama Adwoa carried her secret with quiet dignity, believing that the truth, whatever it was, would soon be revealed. The story of the 82-year-old woman and the 27-year-old handyman was no longer just gossip. It had become a mystery that even science could not explain. The doctors filled Mama Adwoa's courtyard with their equipment. White coats moved around her like restless birds, carrying papers, wires, and strange machines. Everyone expected them to prove the town wrong, to say the old woman's claim was nothing but a mistake or a sickness. Many villagers gathered outside her walls, eager to hear the truth. Whispers floated in the air, heavy with doubt and excitement. Inside, Mama Adwoa sat calmly on her wooden chair, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She did not speak much, answering questions with short, gentle words. Her face showed no fear, no shame, only peace. Cato stood beside her, watching every move the doctors made, making sure she was not treated with disrespect. The first tests were quick. The doctors touched her pulse, checked her heartbeat, and asked her questions about her health. They expected to find weakness or confusion. But what they saw surprised them. Her heart was steady, her body stronger than they had imagined for a woman of her age. They exchanged confused looks but said nothing aloud. Then came the real test. They brought their machines closer, one doctor holding a small device against her stomach. The room grew quiet. Everyone leaned forward, waiting. Then, faintly, a sound filled the air, a heartbeat. Not Mama Adwoa's, but another, faster and stronger. The doctors froze. Cato's eyes widened. Mama Adwoa closed her eyes, whispering a prayer of thanks. "It is real," one doctor murmured. "There is a baby inside." The news spread quickly. Those standing outside the courtyard shouted the words into the streets. Children ran, repeating the message. The baby is real. The old woman carries a child. The gossip turned into stunned silence. Neighbors who had mocked her now stood with open mouths, unable to believe what they had just heard. The doctors repeated the test again and again, unwilling to trust their own ears. Each time the small heartbeat sounded clear and strong. It was not a mistake. It was not an illusion. There was truly life growing inside her. Scientists stepped forward, demanding their turn. They measured, they wrote, they spoke in quick, sharp voices that no one else understood. Their machines blinked with lights, their papers filled with numbers and graphs. But no matter what they did, the truth remained the same. Mama Adwoa was 82 years old, and she was carrying a strong and healthy baby. The scientists argued among themselves. "This cannot happen," one said. "Her age makes it impossible." Another shook his head, pointing at the results. "But the evidence is clear. We must accept what we see." Their disbelief turned into amazement, but still no one had answers. Meanwhile, the villagers gathered in silence, their earlier laughter gone. They looked at Mama Adwoa with wide eyes, some with fear, others with wonder. For the first time no one dared to mock her. The truth was greater than their jokes. It was something beyond their understanding. Cato felt his chest rise with pride as he watched her. She sat calmly like a queen before her people, while doctors and scientists struggled to explain her. He knew she was strong, but now the world was beginning to see it too. Her quiet dignity had turned into power. As the days passed, the tests continued. Every time the results were the same. The child inside her grew strong. The scientists could not explain how her body carried life at such an age. They searched for signs of weakness or danger, but the baby showed no struggle. Each report ended with the same word, healthy. The story reached far beyond the town. Newspapers printed her name, calling her the miracle woman. Radio spoke about her every morning. Some called it a blessing from God. Others said it was a mystery that science had yet to solve. The world was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Mama Adwoa, however, lived as she always had. She woke early, swept her yard, and greeted her neighbors. She cooked simple meals and rested when she needed to. She did not boast or argue. She simply carried her child and carried her peace. Her calmness made her story even greater. The villagers began to change. Some who had mocked her now came quietly to her door, asking for forgiveness. They brought small gifts, yams, rice, or palm oil, hoping to share in her blessing. Others still kept their distance, afraid of what they did not understand. But no one laughed anymore. Respect slowly replaced the gossip. Cato became busier than ever. He not only cared for her house but also protected her from the endless visitors who came to see her. Some traveled from faraway lands, bringing cameras and microphones. They wanted interviews, photos, answers. But Cato guarded her peace, refusing anyone who disturbed her too much. She needs rest, he told them firmly. This is not a show for your entertainment. At night, when the noise finally faded, Mama Adwoa sometimes spoke to Cato in a low, gentle voice. The world is watching, but I am not afraid, she said. This child is not mine alone. It is a sign. It carries a message bigger than us. Cato listened carefully, though he did not fully understand her words. All he knew was that her faith was stronger than the doubts of the world. Doctors and scientists kept coming, each one hoping to solve the mystery. But the more they studied, the less they understood. They found no mistake, no hidden trick. Each test only proved the truth again. Finally, one scientist admitted, "We may never understand how this happened. Some things are beyond science." His words spread quickly and people began to whisper that this was not just medicine, it was a miracle. Mama Adwoa remained calm, her face serene like the evening sky. She did not fight to prove anything, nor did she fear the questions. She only carried her child with grace, believing that the truth would reveal itself in time. The town no longer laughed. Instead, they watched with quiet wonder as science struggled to explain what faith had already accepted. When the first whispers left the small town, few believed it would reach beyond the dusty streets where Mama Adwoa lived. But soon the news spread like fire across the country. Radio stations spoke about her every morning. Newspapers carried her picture, some with disbelief, others with amazement. Television crews arrived, setting up cameras outside her old family house. People who once laughed at her pregnancy now pressed against her gates, hoping to see her with their own eyes. Doctors who had tested her came forward with official statements. They declared that the baby inside Mama Adwoa was not only real but also special. According to them, the unborn child carried rare and unique genes. These genes, they explained, might hold secrets about human strength, survival, and the ability to live beyond what anyone thought possible. For the scientists, it was not just an unusual case, it was history. The very same neighbors who had mocked her months ago now began to speak differently. At first, they whispered that maybe it was some trick, but when scientists stood before cameras and said there was no mistake, people fell silent. Slowly, the shame that once surrounded Mama Adwoa turned into admiration. She was no longer called foolish or sinful. She was now spoken of as a miracle. Mama Adwoa herself stayed calm through it all. She did not boast or try to prove herself. She simply lived each day with quiet strength, her faith in something greater unshaken. When reporters asked her how she felt about carrying a baby at her age, she would smile gently and say, "This child is not mine alone. This child is for the world to see what life can still give." Cato never left her side. He was a young man in the eyes of the world and people questioned his role. Some accused him of being irresponsible, others said he was using Mama Adwoa for attention. But he ignored the voices. Instead, he focused on caring for her. He brought her food when she was too tired to cook. He helped her walk when her legs trembled. He fixed every broken corner of the house so that she would feel safe and at ease. In his eyes she was not a joke or a scandal. She was someone who had trusted him, someone who deserved protection. The more people saw Kato's loyalty, the more their doubts faded. Journalists who had come to mock found themselves writing stories of devotion. Mothers began telling their daughters about the young man who stood by an old woman when the whole world mocked her. Children passing by would call out, "Mama Adwoa, we believe in you." And she would raise her hand and bless them. Scientists from other countries arrived to study the case. They came with machines and notebooks, eager to discover answers. They said the child inside Mama Adwoa could change the way the world understood aging and life itself. But even they, with all their knowledge, could not fully explain how an 82-year-old woman could carry life. One professor admitted on television, "We are in the presence of something that goes beyond science. This is a gift we may never see again." The town, once divided, now gathered around her. Markets sold little charms and fabrics with her face printed on them. People began to call her Mother of Miracles. Strangers traveled long distances just to stand outside her house and pray. The same laughter that once wounded her was replaced by songs of praise. Mama Adwoa often sat by her window looking out at the crowds. She did not seek fame or riches. What mattered to her was the life growing inside. She felt the gentle kicks of the child and placed her hand over her belly with tears in her eyes. To her, this baby was proof that her years of loneliness were not the end of her story. She had once believed her old age meant she was finished, but now she knew life had written one more chapter for her. Kato too found strength in the journey. He grew more serious, more responsible. Where he once laughed with friends and wasted hours, he now worked harder to provide for both Mama Adwoa and the unborn child. People who had doubted him saw his transformation. They began to say that perhaps the miracle was not only the baby, but also the change it brought in those around it. As the months passed, scientists kept announcing new findings. They said the child's genes showed resilience beyond imagination. Some claimed the baby might even hold answers to diseases that had no cure. What had started as gossip in a small town was now discussed in great cities, in universities, and even in government meetings. Leaders called Mama Adwoa a treasure, promising to ensure her safety. But through all of this she remained humble. "I am still the same woman who lives in this house," she would say softly. "It is the child who carries the miracle, not me." Yet people insisted she was special, for without her the child would not have come. The pregnancy was not easy. At her age, every step was heavy and every day carried risk. Sometimes the pain was so strong that she could barely sleep. Kato would sit by her bed, holding her hand through the long nights. When she felt like giving up, he reminded her, "You have carried this far, Mama. You are stronger than you know." His words gave her courage. Even as she struggled, she was not alone anymore. The town that had once turned its back now surrounded her with support. Women brought her meals, children sang for her, and men came to guard her house from those who disturbed her peace. What began with gossip ended with unity. By the time her pregnancy reached its final stage, Mama Adwoa was no longer just a woman of her town. She had become a story for the world. A story of strength, of hope, and of the mystery of life. People no longer asked, "How is this possible?" They simply said, "It is a miracle." Through it all, Kato stood beside her, protecting her every step of the way. And Mama Adwoa, though tired, carried herself with dignity. She knew that the world could mock, question, and study her, but what truly mattered was the life within her, a life that carried light for the future. The day finally arrived when Mama Adwoa went into labor. The whole town held its breath. Crowds gathered outside the hospital, their voices soft with prayers. Some were afraid because of her age, others were hopeful, and many simply wanted to witness history. Inside the hospital, doctors and nurses prepared carefully, knowing this moment was unlike any they had seen before. The world was watching. Mama Adwoa lay on the hospital bed, her face tired but calm. She had carried the weight of both the child and the world's attention for months, and now the moment had come. Kato stood at her side, holding her hand tightly. He whispered words of strength, reminding her she was not alone. He promised he would not leave until both she and the baby were safe. The hours were long and filled with tension. Nurses moved quickly, doctors gave instructions, and machines beeped steadily. Outside, television cameras flashed, and reporters updated the world minute by minute. People in different countries sat by their screens waiting for news. This was no longer just the story of one old woman in a small town. It was the story of humanity's greatest mystery. At last, after great struggle, the cry of a baby filled the room. It was strong, clear, and full of life. The doctors stared in awe, and some even clapped with relief. Mama Adwoa closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks, and whispered a prayer of thanks. Cato looked at the tiny baby, his own tears falling freely, and he held Mama Adwoa's hand tighter than ever. The child was perfect, healthy in every way. Against every law of science and nature, an 82-year-old woman had given birth to life. Mama Adwoa named the baby Nuru, which meant light. She chose the name because to her, this child was not just her son but a new beginning, a light for the world. News spread instantly. Within hours, newspapers printed the story, television channels showed the first pictures of the baby, and scientists around the world expressed shock. Many called it one of the greatest mysteries of human life. Some declared it a miracle beyond logic, while others admitted they had no explanation at all. But one thing everyone agreed on was that the baby was real, alive, and healthy. In the town, people who once mocked now celebrated. Drums were played in the streets, children danced, and women sang songs of praise. Neighbors came together, bringing gifts of food, clothes, and blessings for Mama Adwoa and little Nuru. The same voices that had once doubted her now spoke of her with pride. They called her the woman who carried light into the world. Mama Adwoa, though weak from childbirth, held her baby close and smiled. For years she had lived quietly, carrying the pain of loneliness, but now her arms were filled with life. She whispered to Nuru, "You are the reason they will remember me. You are my gift, my miracle." Cato made a promise that day. Standing in front of the doctors, the neighbors, and even the cameras, he declared that he would raise the child with love and honor. He said Nuru would grow up knowing truth, kindness, and courage. Many people doubted whether a young man could keep such a promise, but those who had seen Cato's loyalty to Mama Adwoa during the hardest months believed him. They knew his words came from the heart. Scientists continued to study the case. They wanted to understand how such a thing was possible, but each answer only led to more questions. Some suggested that Nuru's genes carried a secret of survival that could help humanity for generations. Others said the birth showed that life was stronger than limits, stronger than rules. But Mama Adwoa only smiled when asked about it. To her, Nuru was not a project or an experiment. He was her child, her light, and that was enough. As the weeks passed, people from different countries came to visit. Some came out of curiosity, others out of respect, and many came in search of hope. They wanted to see the woman who had carried a miracle and the baby who had shaken the wisdom of science. Mama Adwoa received them with humility, always reminding them that she was just a simple woman chosen for something greater. The town grew proud of her. Children learned her story in schools, and teachers used her name when they spoke about courage and faith. Traders sold cloth with Nuru's name printed on it. Songs were written about the woman who gave birth at 82. What had once been laughter and mockery had become honor and memory. But for Mama Adwoa, the true joy was simple. It was not the cameras or the praise. It was the quiet moments at night when she held Nuru close and listened to his breathing. It was the way his tiny fingers wrapped around hers. It was the peace she felt knowing that even in her final years she had been given the gift of motherhood. Cato stood as her strength. He took care of both mother and child, working harder than ever to provide for them. Though young, he grew into his role with determination. People watched him and began to say that maybe the miracle was not only in the birth but also in the bond between an old woman, a young man, and a child born against all odds. Time passed, and the story of Mama Adwoa and Nuru spread far and wide. Even in distant lands, people spoke of it as proof that life could still surprise, still break boundaries. Scientists kept their reports, but ordinary people remembered the story for something greater. It gave them hope. It reminded them that no matter how late it seemed, no matter how impossible life appeared, miracles could still happen. In the heart of it all was Mama Adwoa, a woman who had once been laughed at, now celebrated across the world. She looked at her son and knew that her life had not ended in loneliness but in light. She had carried not just a baby but a lesson for all who doubted. She had shown that hope can be born at any age and that love has no boundaries. As she sat outside her home one evening, watching the sun set with Nuru in her arms and Cato by her side, Mama Adwoa smiled. She had been given what she thought was lost forever, a family. And in that moment she understood that her story would live long after she was gone, carried in the hearts of those who believed in miracles. The world would remember her not as a joke but as a symbol of courage, faith, and love. Her child, Nuru, would grow with the story of his birth shaping him, reminding him that he was born to bring light. And so, the story of Mama Adwoa came to its gentle close, not in shame, not in loneliness but in honor and love. She had shown that miracles do not follow rules, and hope can arrive when least expected. The miracle of Nuru was not just a baby. It was a message that life always holds surprises and no matter the age there is still room for new beginnings. The end.